Alright, what is up, guys? I am I could hear myself twice. Hold on. I am so... I just heard it thrice. Okay, we're gonna definitely fail the opening of this song. Oh, that is not great. Well, it is just on par for what, today has been like, in all honesty. I'm just gonna... How do I... Okay, hold on. I need to reset. I need to reset. Um, let me get my opening actually done until I start pressing buttons and start hearing myself 3 times in reverberation. What is up, everyone? I hope you're having a good day. I am so sorry I wasn't able to stream last night. I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. Stuff that I will actually explain. Instead of doing an opening for Symphonic Rain like I usually do, I was thinking I might as well go through and actually just go ahead and play the music, right? I mean, the music in this is kind of like one of the openings I would put into one of my streams anyways. Plus it gives me kind of practice to warm up for the day at hand. So the good news, I guess we should start off with that. The good news is, first off, I'm on winter vacation. So we'll start it off with that, right? Oh, and I guess the fact that I'm 100%ing this is really working out too. So I am on winter vacation now. Let me actually try to reclaim my thought here while we start this. So I'm on winter vacation up until like January 3rd or whatever. So it's kind of nice. Give me some more time to lay back and stream. But now let me go ahead and start off with the sad part. All right, every positive always has to have a negative. So in all honesty, I actually have decently bad seasonal depression, and it's not like that sounds like the most edgiest thing I've ever said. And honestly, it's not like that at all, right? I guess I should probably reword what I'm trying to say. I have a really bad foreboding foreboding mental state about the month of December, specifically late December. The worst things in my life that have ever happened to me all happen in late December. So I wouldn't say that it's seasonal depression, like, oh, it's the holidays, oh, I have to deal with family, whatever. It's not like that at all. I think that's a little off. I think it's more, like I said, it's a foreboding. Like, I usually, like, refuse to do anything, and I can't even control it. I just, for, like, the late months of December, it just hits hard. Like, I can't control it, so... Anyways, my parents kind of started to go ahead and realize that, and so they kind of called me up today, and they're like, hey, why don't we go over to your favorite restaurant? Because, like, we know that usually when, like, come this time of year, instead of, like, becoming, like, and talking with everyone and stuff like that, I usually just kind of corner myself, honestly, and just do my own thing. So my parents called me up today, and they're like, hey, let's go to your favorite restaurant, because, you know, we could tell that that's going to kick in just like it does every December. Like, you know what? That sounds fantastic. I'm super excited to go to my favorite restaurant tonight, right? So I go across to my favorite restaurant, and everything that could have gone wrong at this restaurant, lads, went wrong. So we had a reservation. It's a rather expensive Japanese restaurant, so we had to go ahead and get a reservation and stuff like that. We have our reservation for 5:30, right? So I'm stoked because I haven't been to this place since my birthday. My parents usually call me up and take me out there for my birthday every year. That's like my one gift from them. I said I get to go to my favorite restaurant. So I haven't been there since my birthday, and then, you know, my parents had realized that I was not feeling the best because it is reaching mid to late December. So they're like, hey, you know what? Let's call you up and we'll take you out over there. And you know what? I'm stoked. So we go over there, and our reservation's set for 5:30. We don't get seated until about 6:30, even though we had a reservation. And then we got seated with another, it was a couple, to be precise. And reminder, I'd like to note that this is a Japanese restaurant. So the waiter forgets about us and does not place our order in. So we have to stay there now until like 7. So we've already been there for about an hour and a half and have not eaten. And the waiter goes and is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot about you guys." You know. So he literally forgot about us, and then they go ahead and it's one of the places where it's kind of like a Benihana, I guess, where people come up and cook for you. The chef that they gave us was brand new. It was his first time ever cooking, and I have no idea how he ever even got hired because everything was cooked incorrectly, right? I asked for fried rice, and he gave me steamed rice. He couldn't do like a single thing correct. Even when he would crack the egg, it would just fall. He messed up every single time. And towards the end of it, I'm just sitting there and I'm just ready to go home. I don't even want to eat at that point, you know. So me and my dad are just having a laugh because it's just the worst experience that we've ever had. And all of a sudden they finally bring us our drinks, right? And my dad loves Dr. Pepper, and so he orders Dr. Pepper. He takes a single sip, and all of a sudden he just straight sprints, right? Just straight sprints. And my mom's like, "Hey, you should go check on him," right? So he runs towards the way of the bathroom, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go check on him." So I go into the bathroom, and my poor dad is just sitting there, just like absolutely hurling. And I guess that there was something wrong with the Dr. Pepper that he was drinking to the point where it gave him like a food poisoning. I didn't even think that was possible from soda, but I guess it is. So by that time, my dad's already lost his appetite because the poor lad's been hurling in the bathroom for 10 minutes before, or once again, our food's not even there. So I order the most basic thing. I just order shrimp, right? Because at that point, me and my dad both want to leave. So he gives me my now, whatever rice. I can't even call it rice. I think it was like a clump. And the waiter has completely forgotten about us at this point. And all of a sudden, I don't get my shrimp. And I'm like, oh my god, I ordered the most simple thing, right? And we were not talking to the people who were seated next to us, I want to know. So finally, I just look over at my mom and I'm like, "Can we just leave? Like, I don't care if I have to pay at this point. I don't want to come back to this place ever again." So she goes, "Yeah, but we did pay for your shrimp. So hey, why don't we go ahead and get it?" So now, like I said, it's probably about 7. And so my mom goes, "Hey, my son, he ordered shrimp and he never received it." And the cook goes, and I kid you not, I wish I was making this up. The cook goes, "Oh no, I didn't forget about it. You see the people that sit next to you," points over at the guy next to us, "he has a seafood allergy." He has a seafood allergy and he decides on going to a Japanese restaurant. What the hell? And I just look over and I'm just shaking my head. Finally, he gives me my shrimp. I don't even eat it. I take it to go. I say, "All right, I'm out." So the manager had walked up, and because they had to wait, so now, once again, reservations at 5:30. It is now 7:30, and we are taking our stuff to go. We are literally taking our stuff to go. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even joking. We are taking our stuff to go. Yes. He did. That's the problem. After he cooked the shrimp, after all of their meals were done. But since he was brand new, it took him over like 20 or 30 minutes to do so. So I just look over at the guy, and I'm just thinking to myself, why, if you have a seafood allergy, would you go to a Japanese restaurant? But you know what? That is so besides the point. So the manager actually came up to us, because I guess me and my dad were just looking rather distraught. And she goes, "Hey, is everything okay?" And I'm just thinking, like, I kind of just want to go ahead and say, "Yeah, it is." And my dad looks over at her and goes, "No, actually, it's not." And then, like, she looks kind of surprised. And then he goes, "This is literally the worst experience I've ever had in my entire life." He's like, "And just know we're never coming back." So we just got our stuff and we left. Didn't even eat there, lads. I'm telling you, like, no matter what happens in this realm, every December, the worst things happen, and I can't control it. Like, there is like I said, I guess it would be called seasonal depression, but it's not. It's just foreboding because it's just stuff like that. Like literally everything that could go wrong in the month of December, late December, always goes wrong. So, um, dude, I'm down. I'm free till January 3rd. I just want to do something because I mean I'm gonna start hanging out with a lot of the lad from Oregon starting tomorrow. So hopefully Schalke wins tomorrow. Hopefully the sports guys will join me for that game. And then Monday Lazio wins. And you know what? Maybe that'll change it around. Hopefully we get a Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer. But nonetheless, hopefully Symphonic Rain cheers me up. And the funniest part about that is that I know it's definitely not going to cheer me up. So, as a forewarning, because I can't control it, there is a chance I may be more emotional than usual, which is probably already non-existent. There's not really, I mean, yeah, Christmas Eve's cool, but like, I don't know, it's just, December's rough, lads, December's rough, but honestly, streaming and reading VNs really helps me out, so I appreciate all of you guys that are here watching because you're helping me with my issue. I think I had something else to say. Oh, I did ace every single one of my classes this semester. Quarter. In my pre-law program, I actually was at the top of 2 of my classes. So, that's good news. I think that's probably the only good thing to come out of December this month. So, hopefully I can just focus more on streaming and get over whatever it is for me. And hopefully all my bad luck that I have in December ran out today because I can't. It's just everything that goes on, the guys, is just an absolute nightmare. It's uncontrollable. So hopefully we can go ahead and find some light in the rain. Brooms. In the stillness of the morning, my eyes opened by themselves. There was absolute quiet in the room, and the cold air caressed my face. I hadn't yet posted the letter to Ari that I'd written yesterday, of course. There was still time to undo things. I heard a voice inside me say that, but it was already too late. Do what you think is right. That is indeed what she had said in her letter. No matter what that may be, those words would become my excuse. It's too early for that kind of face, surely. Morning. Morning? You haven't even answered my question. I haven't looked in the mirror, so I don't know your answer. She descended gently next to my pillow and she stared at me. You've made up your mind, haven't you? No point fretting about it now. I know. I had told Forney everything yesterday. I could not hide it anymore. When classes started, Lise would probably come over. I told her about that, and I told her about Arietta as well. Forney liked Torta and Ari, so I had expected to get a real scolding. But Forney had said the same thing that Ari did in her letter. Just do what you think is right. She said that with a smile. Okay, now what? Now? I haven't even thought about that. It's a day off. I was just going to relax. I could have sworn we read this. You're such a meanie. What do you mean? I didn't get to sing it all yesterday. First Lise came over, then we had a long talk. Sorry. She continued her tirade. I knew she wasn't really mad at me. It was just fresh in my mind how serious she'd look as she listened. Perhaps this was Forney's way of cheering me up. To be honest, her words did make me feel better. Don't apologize. Good grief. Isn't there something you should be saying? Huh? You're still asleep, aren't you? Maybe. I really have no idea what you're getting at. Playing dumb, I hammed up my confusion. Really? That's not going to wake me up. I want to sing. Ah, that's it. Yes, that. It may not mean much to you, but I'm sorry. What I meant was, I don't mind if that is all that it is. Really? Are you doubting? I always sing on Sunday nights, right? That Sunday was yesterday. She sounded quite serious, unexpectedly so. She wasn't just cheering me up. Perhaps this was really how she felt. True. For no apparent reason, I thought of Ari. For now, I was all that Forney had. All she could do was look out the window the whole day or sing by herself, and everything else depended on what I did. Okay, we've read this for sure. Yeah, we're 100% read this. This was the issue that we had last time. Alright. Okay, I think. Alright, we should be done here. Usually the days before the new year were supposed to pass by uneventfully. Oh, no, we've read this already. Okay. New stuff. When Lise wasn't around, I wanted to do something for other people with my time. Right now, I was only able to do something for Forney, not Eri, who deserved my apology the most of all. Perhaps such amends had no meaning at all, but I believe that they did, and I continued playing the fortele for Forney's sake. What little time I had left would be offered to this musical fairy. What little time he has left? Oh no. Without any fanfare, the new year had already begun when I awoke. I had no errands to run, so I was thinking about going back to sleep when I saw Forney standing on the other side of my pillow. Morning. Morning. What day is today? It's New Year's. Good night. We've already read this as well. Alright, hold on. Oh, here we go. Before our ensemble, I had gone outside. There was a familiar envelope. So this is probably going to be the breakup letter. Where were you? You scared me going out of there all the way without saying anything. Forney was being kind, perhaps doing her best not to mention the letter. But no matter how tired, tried I forget, there was no doubt it was in my hands now. Is that Eri's letter? Yeah. I'll disappear for a while. Without waiting for my response, she vanished. Without that talkative fairy, the room seemed empty. Perhaps it was the guilt and anxiety that made me afraid of being alone. Go on, read it. I've been waiting since morning. Okay, got it. Good boy. Forney, she reappeared. Blah, blah, blah. We've already read this. Okay. Dear Chris, I've read your last letter. All I can say now is thank you for telling me the truth. If you had lied to me, I would have believed it and waited for you like a fool, because that's how I am. Is this different? You 500 IQers, big brains. Please tell me that this one's different, right? I'm not being sarcastic. That's how I really feel. Oh, it is different. It's much different because she says that I have a feeling you're going to blah, blah, blah. Lies only hurt others. It's for that reason that I expected things and I was able to write this letter to you. It's hard to say goodbye, but we will forget soon enough. Forget about me. I'll do my best to forget you too. Do what you think is right. It is different. I wouldn't be writing a reply to that letter, I suppose. She wasn't expecting one, nor did I have anything else to say. Please forget about me. I'll do my best to forget you too. That is different. I don't know how much more time we'll have for that. I was suddenly brought back to reality by that bright voice. What did you say? The end will come someday. That's why I want to enjoy our songs while we can. What are you going to do after all of this? You mean now? After I leave this place? Who knows? Maybe nothing will change. Will you still be here? Maybe, maybe not. That's vague. She laughed again and she spoke in a song-like voice. When the time comes, you'll see. I woke up unusually early in the morning today, and my feet headed for school by the Reflex. The first thing I had to do was report to Cordell. After hearing Lise say the word partner that night for the first time, I made up my mind. According to the clock, I was 15 minutes before the first period. She wasn't in the class, but the door was unlocked, so I knew she'd return soon. She didn't have any more one-on-one lessons starting today, but she was always stationed here to instruct students who came as necessary. In addition, she was also supposed to be here for her own students. I didn't think I'd have a chance to play the fortele for her, so I had not brought my case. Just as I was running out of ways to pass the time, the door opened. Oh, it's you. Good morning. Good morning. It seems you remembered our arrangement. Yes, that is what I'm here to talk about. Well done. I'll explain everything in the backup candidate whose services will no longer be needed. I haven't even said anything yet. How did you know? Your face says it all. How many years have I been in charge of you? Almost 2. Yep, from this point on, there's not much else we need to say. She smiled. Do your best with the performance. Try not to come here until then. Understood. I will not bother you. That's fine, but I'll be using this room from time to time. Is that right? Some special classes are still being held. Not that I have any students left, though. I see. Will you do something in the lecture room? Who knows? Perhaps I'll compose. I used to do that all the time when I was a student. She sounded wistful. From her demeanor, it didn't look like Cordell had been a bad impression of Grave. If you ignored his demanding attitude towards music, perhaps he was actually a decent person. For that very reason, if our graduation recital performance was noteworthy, her song might gain Graves' recognition. I didn't see you bring your fortelli today. I came only to deliver the report. You're taking practice seriously? Of course. Besides, if I'm here too often, I'm going to get in trouble. After all, you're supposed to be unaware of it, right? That's a good excuse to skip practice. She smiled, bringing the conversation to an end with that. Come back if anything happens. Thanks. I bowed deeply and I left. It was still early, but Lise would only come to my room after the end of classes. There was nothing for me to do in the school, so I went home. In my room, I played the fortele aimlessly while waiting for Lise, but it was already way past the end of classes. As a first year, I had a homeroom and such, so I rarely went home, but even taking that into account, it was late. What's going on? I don't think she's coming. Hovering above the fortele, Forni sounded bored. She had met Lise on the night of Natale, but for sake, she didn't show herself. Furthermore, she hadn't even heard her sing. I tried to describe how great it was, but she'd understand so much more if she had just heard it. That's why I wanted Forni to hear it as soon as possible, but let's just wait a little bit longer. With that, I placed my fingers on the fortele. In fact, I hadn't even played that song yet. I figured it wouldn't mean anything without Lisa's voice, so I picked other songs and just performed some ensembles. It was really getting late. Strange. Yeah, she was also getting worried. I knew where her house was after walking her home, and I was going to go get her. But it wasn't probable that we'd miss each other. That was even more likely since she'd come here once she'd finished whatever it was she was doing. Coming. That was probably Lise, opening the door in a hurry. Hey, I'm sorry. Lise? She was standing in front of the door looking pained. I could tell at a glance she wasn't feeling well, so I hurried her into the room just like last time. She raised one hand to show me something she was carrying. It was the umbrella I'd forced her to accept last time. You've been using it. On closer inspection, I realized that the umbrella was dripping wet. She was dry. Anyway, you can come inside. Okay. I made her sit down, and just like last time, I asked for a reason. What happened this time? Why is your neck bandaged? Her throat seemed to be causing her a lot of pain. Every time she tried to speak, she'd cough and screw up her face in agony, so she gave up and wrote out what she wanted to say instead. She caught a cold? It had gone down. Yeah, right. Seeing her in front of me, I could tell how much she was suffering. In any case, the bandage around her neck was packed full of a herbal remedy that was good for sore throats. You caught a cold? She finished writing and nodded emphatically. Her throat looked painful, but it was better than I thought at first. As long as she didn't say anything, she seemed fine. Then why did you come? Like I said last time, you shouldn't force yourself. She shook her head, and then she continued writing. If I don't talk, it's okay. And we agreed to meet today, so I thought you'd be worried. This is the same conversation as last time. Do you have a fever too? She shook her head, but I put my palm on her forehead anyway. Looks like you don't have one. Oh, this main character is a brainlet. Wait, so... Oh, my headset fell. So she can't sing? I couldn't answer her now, but Forni, who had been quiet, asked in dismay. Without least noticing, I looked over at Forni and nodded. Well, we can't practice today. She showed me what she'd written. I want to hear you play. Huh? I had planned to play it anyway, and I'd practiced with Forni earlier, so I was ready. But I felt a little sad to play without her singing. I didn't feel that when I practiced by myself, but having her next to me made it apparent. Sure, why not? The same as always? She nodded and sat in front of the fortele. There won't be any singing, but that's fine. Here we go. She seemed a little upset, but her mood improved, and she moved the desk to hear the sound of the fortele more clearly. I was off to a good start. I hadn't heard Lisa's voice at all recently, and started to miss it the more I played. She held a latte in one hand, and she listened, while Forni, for some reason, was looking at me in surprise. My fingers were moving smoothly, my mind was somewhere distant. I was thinking about Lise. To put it into words, very simply, I felt many things for her, all of which I surrendered to music. I played not according to the composer's intentions, but while investing the piece with my own will. During the songs that followed, Forni seemed to get the groove and even started to sing. There were songs I'd practiced many times with Forni, songs I'd practiced less often with Val, and amidst this, all time flew by. That'll do. Thank you very much. She wrote that out neatly and bowed while remaining seated. You're welcome. Today's performance was great. This was the first time hearing your song, but I felt like I could hear someone else singing. Really? I suddenly remembered that Forni had been singing, but until now no one was ever able to hear her. Besides, she hadn't reacted when Forni was speaking to me, so perhaps it was just a feeling. Nah, never mind. You should be getting home soon. It's getting late, no? She gave a little start when she looked at the clock. Oh, that's not good. It's late. I'll walk you home. She shook her head, but I ignored her as I got ready to head out with her. Alright, let's go. Sharing the umbrella, we walked through the city at night. When we reached the main street, her house was just a short distance away, but we'd gotten closer. Her foot seemed better and she was walking normally, almost. Our shoulders were nearly touching as we continued walking silently towards her house. Okay, I guess I'll head back now. I did all the talking so she didn't have to say anything. I also decided to sketch out our schedule for the coming days. I'm assuming you can't sing for a while. Don't speak, just nod or shake. I'll ask yes or no questions. She nodded. What should we do about practice then? Wait, you can't answer. Until you recover, we can't go without practice, right? Nod. Practice rooms at school? Head shake. Maybe break? Head shake. My room? Nod. Yes. In that case, just come whenever. I'll run errands while you're at school. She nodded energetically. Then I'll see you tomorrow? She shook her head. Something to do tomorrow? Nod. Well, even if you came, you'd only be able to hear me play since you're sick. She didn't have to move her head, she just smiled. So, the next time you come over, Friday? Nod. And then she waved as she entered her house. She was still holding onto that umbrella. I didn't know if she'd snuck out, but when I saw her go inside by some unseen path, not the front door. After which I headed home. I'm home. Welcome back. Even though it was only my second time outside, Forney had prepared a towel, as always. I wiped my hair and body dry and I went inside. It's a shame you didn't get to hear her sing. Yeah. But I got to hear you play, so that's alright. But you hear that all the time, don't you? Not that song. That was the first time I've heard that song. True. How'd you like it? It's a love song? Huh? I can't explain it, but I think that's the impression I got. I don't think so? Hold on, I've got it. It reminds me of a song that we always used to perform together. That's why. Well, that's a completely different story. It has its own melody mood. Perhaps, I think something like it is similar, that's all. Nothing important. It seemed Forney wasn't making fun of me, but giving her honest opinion instead. And because it was quite late, she said goodnight and then disappeared. I didn't know what business she had to attend on Thursday, but on both days after that, Lise came over. Her throat was still recovering, so she didn't sing. In fact, since the day I chose her as my partner, we'd hardly had any practice time together. That was just thanks to a series of unfortunate events, from her foot injury and the business she had to attend to over New Year's to her recent illness. Yeah, illness. Despite all that, she came over to my room and listened to me play the fortele. She was supposed to be here this afternoon. I was heating up some rusks in the oven for her, who didn't eat much, or maybe she just didn't even like food. The rusks could be eaten normally, but baking them made them crisp and a lot easier to eat. Discounting the times that she'd been sick or injured, Lise was actually very punctual, which was something I learned recently. I guess it's about time. Any time now. She wouldn't get to sing with Lise, but Forney seemed unusually excited. I couldn't keep practicing Lisa's song the whole day, and when I did play something else, that was Forney's turn to sing. Her voice was so amazing, it was too bad I couldn't hear it. Or only I could hear it. If I could only let Lise hear it, I'm sure her singing would get even better. Coming. Good afternoon. Hi, come on in. Leaving her rain-soaked umbrella by the door, Lise went inside. She was definitely using the umbrella I had bought for her, because she was completely dry. After recovering from illness, it was wise to take such precautions. Something smells nice, she whispered, looking in the direction of the kitchen. Her voice seemed to be much better. Would she be able to sing today, perhaps? Or should we take things a bit more slowly? You didn't eat this morning, right? Really, but I'm not that but I'm not that hungry.
POGU.
Thank you very much for the subscription. The 3-month streak. Still, you should have something, even a little. I'll even eat with you. Okay. I made Lise sit down while I prepared a light lunch. This was my first meal of the day as well. But I wanted the same amount as Lise. I added 1 part coffee, freshly brewed from the espresso maker, to 3 parts warm milk with a delicious latte. I placed the baked rusk down on the oven plate, which I put onto the desk. Well, dig in. Okay. When did it start, I wonder? When did we start having such a natural conversation? The reserved Lise of before, who always spoke with a stutter, was gone. There was no doubt that I had something to do with it, but I hadn't done anything significant to her. At first, I'd simply improvised accompaniments on the fortelli for her singing. Lise always had a frightened look on her face, and she was wary of this boy who'd suddenly appeared in her sanctuary. After I saw how she truly enjoyed singing, I could not leave her alone. The only thing I could do for her was just perform ensembles with her. Lise gradually opened up and even started smiling. That made me so happy, and I waited at the old wing so many times for her. Ever since then, I grew fonder and fonder. Because of that, I hurt another girl's feelings. It's okay, you do it all the time. Someone important, someone who used to be. But now I thought everything had worked out fine. That was the feeling I got when I looked at Lise smiling in front of me. What's the matter? Sorry, just random thoughts, nothing important. Is that so? You have a really peaceful look on your face. Really? Yeah. She sounded happy and she put a rusk in her mouth. I'd baked quite a lot, but Lise had been eating them, it seemed, so the plate was nearly empty. Do you want more? No, I'm full. You should eat a little more. She blushed as if remembering something. I remembered what happened that day too. What are we doing today? Well, how's your throat? It feels a lot better, but as she spoke, she tried producing notes. It's okay, don't force yourself. You'll never recover properly if you strain. She was already coughing and holding her throat. If I speak normally, I don't feel too bad though. Then we can just relax. No need to rush things today. The graduation recital was scheduled for the 20th of this month, 12 days away. Even though we had barely 2 weeks left, the last time I had practiced with her, our music had been nearly complete. Miss Cordell would probably disagree, but we didn't have trouble with our breathing, which is most important. Lise had been singing that song all along, so her technique was fine. And even if I couldn't play in a perfect sync with her voice, I'd play that song every day, so I had no shortage of practice myself. As long as we were able to focus on practicing in the final week, we'd be good. That's how highly I rated her singing. About that, I thought about making scores. Even if we don't need them, it'll look bad if we went on without them. Indeed. Moreover, I'd like to have a record of the fortelli arrangement you created. I wouldn't really call it an arrangement. Of course it is. I think it's probably an incredibly fit for this song. Speaking of which, what about the original? I hadn't given it much thought, but I probably should have followed in that in the first place. That's because the partner issue wasn't relevant at the time. If you have the song's original score, copying that would probably be a lot more accurate. About that, there isn't one. That's why I've been singing it from memory, or rather, what's left of it. There's no score? I lost it a long time ago, for one reason or another. In fact, I even made up the lyrics. You hadn't memorized the lyrics? That means... It's just a song I used to hear all the time as a child. That's how I learned it. Do you remember the name of it? Maybe we could find it in the school archives. I don't remember the name. When I was young, I only ever saw one copy. It looked like something someone wrote out of hand. It's not famous, nothing like that. Well, looks like there's nothing to be done at then. I was thinking of writing a new copy today while listening to you play. It is a nice song. Thank you. Huh? Nothing. I'll get ready then. She thanked me for some reason as I'd praised her and said, and then she looked away bashfully as she prepared. She placed a pen and brand new music sheets on the desk and looked over at me. Whenever you're ready, I'll transcribe. We did something like this during class. I was terrible at it. I don't dislike it. In that case, I'll play with a little extra effort. Go ahead. Oh, do your best. This was the only song which Phony could not sing along to. She had never heard the vocal part before, but even I couldn't really recall the lyrics. From her usual spot by the window, Phony serenely listened to me play the fortelli with her wings fluttering gently. I, on the other hand, I'd say my playing so far had been carefree rather than careless, but once I started thinking about it being transcribed, I did get a little nervous. Then again, I did have the fundamentals of it in my head from the very beginning, so I wasn't short on practice. My fingers moved by themselves, and without my awareness, the song headed to its conclusion with great certainty. For a moment it seemed Lise was really going to sing. Perhaps she wasn't aware of it either, but before any note, she'd started coughing. I was about to stop playing and ask if she was okay, but Lise seemed to react quite strongly to that, so she stopped me with one look. I went back to focusing on the song while Lise returned to the score in front of her. That was great. You did well too. There were 2 scores, freshly transcribed before her eyes. She spent the rest of the afternoon on them, probably because she was trying to faithfully reproduce the score from memory. Expressing in symbols the parts that she usually ad-libbed was quite a taxing process, I could imagine. Done! This one's for you. Thank you. Lisa's personality came out clearly in the score's neatly written letters and symbols. Her upbringing was also evident in times like this. And this one is for me. She held the score close to her chest, almost embracing it. That girlish gesture seemed very appropriate. Shall we call it a day? Sure. If you stay out too late, they might find out. Indeed. For the past 2 days, she'd been coming over after school ended, so she'd stayed a little later. Today was a day off, and so we'd been able to spend much more time than enough. All that was left was for her throat to get better. Even though almost everyone would disapprove of it, our partnership was going very unexpectedly well. We just had to nail the actual performance and Lise would win the recognition. It was unlikely that she'd be able to express herself fully otherwise. Looking at his attitude towards music, I was sure that Grave would accept her too, as long as she produced results. That's going to make this bad ending terrible. With these somewhat optimistic thoughts, I decided to focus on now the upcoming recital. Alright, let's head out before it gets dark. Okay. Sharing one umbrella, the two of us walked along the narrow street. Walking Lise home was something I did whenever she came over to my place. Nothing was more important to me right now than time spent like this, being close to her. Are you getting rained on? Oh, no, I'm good. I noticed that her shoulder was slightly exposed, so I tilted the umbrella. She didn't have a fever, but her throat was still sore. I remembered how she'd coughed when trying to sing earlier, so I got a little worried. I was used to the rain, so it didn't matter. That's good. Indeed. She moved over the tiniest bit, closing the distance between us. We hadn't put into words the feelings that we had into each other. Even so, she had noticed, as I was able to tell how she felt about me. It was also not an understanding. In short, we just hadn't found out the right time for it. I didn't have the right words for the present setting, but the time would come, and the words would come naturally. On the day of graduation recital, perhaps, or even after that. Until then, the relationship we'd had so far would just suffice. I tilted the umbrella a little more towards Lisa's side as we continued walking. Well then, thank you very much for walking me home. Don't mention it. I hope you get better soon. Yeah. You know, I didn't mean it like that. I just really want you to feel better. She had cast her eyes down, so I tried to cheer her up. She regretted not being to practice. I could see it in her expression. It's okay. Anyways, take care of yourself. I will. Well, here's your umbrella. I made Lise take it so she wouldn't get wet when she came over. She seemed pleased to receive it, and she went inside. I watched her go in, and then I headed home. When I got home, it was already dark. Before entering the room, I peeked inside the mailbox. There was nothing. Empty space. I found that indescribably depressing. I wasn't writing letters to Ari anymore, so that was expected. There wasn't anything I could say to her either. It was the path I'd chosen, but I couldn't stop this feeling of desolation. Let's see if that affects the meter. Let's see if it affects the meter. And it don't. Today I woke up around 12 and proceeded to have a refined afternoon. I played around on the fortele, joining phony and various ensembles. As I waited for Lise, time passed. Even if she was taking her time to walk in here after class, it was about time for her to make her appearance. Oh, there she is. Yeah. Sorry to keep you waiting, Lise. Chris. She looked at the door. She stood in front of the door looking unhappy. Her expression was gloom, completely different from last night. Lise? She held her umbrella in her hand as always. Her clothes were dry, and she didn't seem ill. The bandage around her neck was still the same brilliant shade of white. But I got the impression that she was withdrawing into herself, just like the first time I met her. What's wrong? No, it's nothing. It's just... Come inside. Okay. Did something happen? Just when everything seemed right, something always had to go wrong. Her demeanor, unusually stiff. She looked like she'd gone back to how she used to be. Do you want to talk? I don't get it. What? I don't get it. In a daze, she just kept repeating the same line and looked away from me. Lise? I didn't get it either. I couldn't think of anything to even ask her while she was in this state. She seemed to be the most confused out of us all. I can't sing. What? At long last, something resembling a reason came out of Lisa's mouth. I can't sing, and I don't understand it. She went back to her earlier line. What? What do you mean she couldn't sing? You can't sing? During class, I had a practice session, but... Oh, it must be your throat. Does it still hurt? No, there hasn't been any pain. Then what's going on? That's just it. I don't get it. Have you seen a doctor? No. If your throat still feels funny, then maybe... That's not it. All of a sudden, she raised her voice. I heard what she said loud and clear, and there didn't seem to be anything wrong with her throat. So... Could you play the fortelli? If I heard it, maybe... Yeah, I could play that anytime. Right now, there's more, though. Please, just play. Lise? Please, I beg you, just play. With tears in her eyes, she pleaded. What's wrong with her? The moment of silence was interrupted by Forney. I felt a little bit relieved. A little of Lisa's anxiety had rubbed off, but hearing Forney made me calm down. Not that I could respond, but I did look at her and give her a small nod. I'm not really sure what's going on, but just play for her. She sounded desperate, or Lise sounded desperate, so something had to have been bothering her. Before identifying the cause, perhaps it'd be better now to get rid of her anxiety. Okay, I'll play for you right now. I was already prepared. All I had to do was sit down and press the keys. That's what you want, right? Please. With a vague sense of worry, I started playing the fortelli. She had closed her eyes and was trying to take in the sound. I felt a little relieved and continued to play. Then, just before the vocal part, she made a humming noise and started coughing. Lise. Chris. She backed away from me and she shook her head emphatically. Your throat's just recovering, right? Looking at Lise, I could tell now was not the time for that, but that's all I could come to words with. How does it look? I was curious about the bandage and reached out for her neck. No. She screamed and pushed my hand away. There was terror in her eyes. Lise? Wait! I ran out after her. But in my haste, I tripped. Through the endless rain, I tried to determine which way Lise had gone. Huh? Okay, so now that the follow bar is off, you should be able... I can now show you the issue. At this point, Chris should be... His depression meter was about yonder. Like, right here. Shouldn't it now be, like, over here if she can't sing? Why did his depression meter go down? Through the endless rain, I tried to determine which way she'd gone. Her home, perhaps, or the street leading to the school. I looked back and forth between the two, but I couldn't see any sign of her. Lise, which path should I pick? I didn't have time for this, so I needed to make a decision. So I picked a place where she would have to return to. I kept scanning my surroundings, even as I ran. It was a weekday afternoon, so there was hardly anyone out. Running through the city, I looked for any sign of her. Her condition didn't seem bad, but perhaps that had just been my misunderstanding. It was even preventing her from singing. Worried that she may have collapsed on the street somewhere, I reduced my speed and looked around. Was it better for me to run straight towards her home, or should I be checking to see if she fell somewhere? Even as I considered my options, my eyes were looking out for her. On street corners, shop awnings, at a speed slightly faster than walking, I entered the new district. Then, I finally saw Lise beyond the fence, her back towards me. I wouldn't be allowed inside. A few more steps, I'd be on their property. I didn't know what would happen, but perhaps someone would come out and even detain me. But all I was able to see somehow was her walking unsteadily into the front door and her disappearing inside the house. I did feel some relief knowing she managed to get home. She wouldn't meet with any accidents and people around to help her. Chris, you dumb fork! At the very least, collapsing in the street and other such misfortunes had been avoided. Lise. However, I couldn't be optimistic about the current situation. Why wasn't she able to sing? She didn't get it either. It was natural to think that her throat was the cause, but she denied it. What bothered me more was the fact that the bandage was still around her throat even after a week. It was unlikely I'd be able to see her again today. It was also unlikely I'd see her tomorrow. So what should I do? What could I do? That was all I thought as I walked slowly in the rain. My only choice was to go to school. If I asked Cordell, maybe she could tell me about her homeroom and her classes. I'd be able to approach her before her classes. If that was impossible, then at least I could wait on campus for her to appear. Yes, I had to go to school tomorrow. Alright, we'll see if your theory marks true. Maybe his adrenaline's pumping so his depression's low. No, see, it's still low. I hadn't slept well last night, perhaps because of what happened yesterday. Maybe it's not actually a depression meter. I hadn't slept well last night because of what happened yesterday. But even if I had to drag my heavy, sleep-deprived self there, I had to go to school. It was only natural for me to think of asking Miss Cordell about Lise. Even if she couldn't tell me anything concrete, that was okay. I just needed to know which class she was in. In the end, I tried to speak to her person. When I arrived, she was seated deep in her chair reading a book. She was looking free. Is that you? What's the matter? I don't see a fortelli, so I'm assuming it's not practice. I need to ask you something. You came all the way for her. She turned to me with a somewhat serious expression. Do you know what class Lise is in? And what happened? We had a falling out. Regardless of the truth of the statement, there was no way I could have explained the situation. That was because neither Lise nor I knew what was even going on. Well, that's sudden. Are you gonna apologize? More or less. Lise is in homeroom 1B of the first year Fortelli, and you'll find the timetable on the bulletin board. It is the start of the school term now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To have a falling out with her. What exactly did you do? Who knows? I'd like to find out myself. You have no self-awareness. There's not much time left. Please don't mess this up. I'll do my best. You didn't say for now. For now, I'm being serious. Good. Hurry before the bell rings. Gotcha. I rushed to take a look at the timetable. Second period on Monday was harmony class in lecture room C. First year students had to take all classes, but since it was related to singing, Lise was even likely to miss it. Things were looking up and I went back to the first hall. Looking from inside, I didn't see any sign of Lise. Even if I asked someone, I wondered if they would know. The bell hadn't rung yet, so I was free to enter the lecture room. Still, a student from another year would probably cause surprise, or at least be viewed with some puzzlement. I wasn't that concerned about decorum and stuff, but I was worried that I might cause Lise some consternation. While doing my best to not to stand out, I approached a student who was entering the lecture room. Excuse me. The class was about to begin, so the girl who tried to walk past me was in a hurry. Under normal circumstances, I would never have been able to speak to a stranger, but I had no other choice. Is this homeroom 1B? Yes. I just wanted to ask, is there a Lise Cesarini? Yeah, there is. Was she in school today? I don't know, but I do not remember seeing her today. Once she did hear Lisa's name, the demeanor on her changed completely. Each grade had its own color and necktie, so she could probably tell that I was her senior. That, in addition to the fact I was starting to ask about Lise, was probably why she sounded irritated, as if I wasn't worth her time. Excuse me, though, I need to go. She gave a slight bow and she went to the lecture room. I couldn't follow her inside, so I looked around the room once more, through the back door. Even from the back, I was sure I could identify Lise. That was the only thing I was sure, and she wasn't there. Having confirmed that, I ran into the cafeteria to pass time. Of course, there was no sign of Lise there, either. It was nothing more than a force of habit that made me come all the way here. I looked around the cafeteria once and decided to leave. Even if I had met Torda, I couldn't say anything to her face now. What happened to Lise? Even if Torda asked me, I'd probably say nothing and just make her worry even more. Outside, it was a quiet morning. The sound of pouring rain stayed in my ears and wouldn't fade away. We are a week away from the recital. I looked all over school yesterday, but I didn't see any sign of Lise. That means she had to have been absent from school for 3 days now. But still, I had no choice but to roam around, believing that she would sometime appear. Between classes, I went to homeroom 1B to ask if Lise, and during classes, I looked elsewhere. After several rounds, I found myself in front of the old wing. I'd stepped outside because it was lunchtime and Torda might have been on campus. At this point, I had no idea what to say if I even saw her. I'm sure I looked desperate right now, and Torda would instantly suspect that something was wrong with me. But I had come to this place almost unconsciously. I tried the front door, but Miss Cordell had said some time ago it was locked. I stood there doing nothing, and then I went back to the main building. Come to think of it, today was Graves' lecture. We had both been eliminated at the second lecture, so there wasn't supposed to be anyone in lecture room B, but when I walked past lecture room B, I heard the Fortelli. Perhaps Grave was composing something. Miss Cordell told me he does that a lot. For a moment I thought this had nothing to do with Lise, but then I realized the opposite was far likelier. Why wasn't she able to sing? What was making her think that she couldn't sing? And why hadn't it occurred to me before that Grave was involved in all of this? I quietly opened up the door and I peeked inside. I was acting suspicious, but hallways were empty because everyone was in class. The third years who didn't have class were almost in practice room. What? I said you could play that song of yours that you like so much. Shouldn't you be happier? Oh. The sound of Lise's Fortelli reverberated throughout the narrow lecture room. It seemed powerful enough to throw doors open and stop me from entering. If I had to describe the emotion in that sound in one word, it would be sad. Cordell and Forney had called it a love song, but all I could hear about it was tragic. Then, there was something else tragic. The cane attached to Lisa's chin was pressing against her throat. It was causing her a lot of pain. Even so, it didn't look like she would stop playing. That must have been one of Graves' methods, as Lise didn't show any resistance. As I watched them, the song went on. When I realized that, I opened the door forcefully. I walked slowly towards them in an attempt to control my emotion. No one scolded me for my act of disrespect. What are you doing?
個人レッスンだ。
A private lesson.
せっかく
I
こ
had
の
set
講義のため
aside
に時
time
間
for
を
this
空けておい
lecture,
た
but
が
I didn't think I had any
教えるべ
students
き
to
生徒
teach.
がい
I'm
ない
making
のだ。
good use of it. And what's the cane for? I'm assuming, or I'm sorry, it has no relevance, right? After some moments, he relaxed his grip and then relaxed his grip. No, that wasn't it. He suddenly flexed his arm, causing Lise to cry and almost bend over backwards.
いい音
Good
楽は
music
い
comes
い
from
姿
good
勢から生ま
posture.
れる。
This is necessary for straightening the spine. You're mad. That was so loud, even I was surprised.
お前
What
に
do you
何が
know?
わか
Be
る。
quiet. Lise, let's go. You can't be here. The only one leaving is you, Chris Furton. Gray finally removed the cane from Lisa's throat and turned to face me. Why do you come here? You're no longer qualified to attend this lecture. Lise? I'm sorry. It's okay. We could talk later. Licelcia? Yes.
私はこのグレ
I
ー
have
な
something
若
to say
者
to
と
this
少し
insolent
話
boy.
がある。
Leave and return in 30 minutes. Yes. Lise? I'm sorry. She headed for the exit, her eyes downcast.
クリスベル
Chris Furton, consider this an honor. I so rarely take the time to speak to anyone. When I ignored him and tried to chase after, he spoke again. She can't sing anymore. Give up. It was a throwaway line. He was mocking me, but it carried a firm note of conviction. It was obvious that he knew our relationship had reached the point of partnership. In that case, how could he be so certain? And then it bothered me that he said can't, not won't. What do you mean? There was nothing polite about my tone. I could go after Lise any time, and unlike the last encounter, she would not return here. I was sickened by Graves' attitude and his words, but for now, I needed to talk to him.
そのままの意味。
The meaning is clear. Wayward children need to be disciplined with a slightly heavier hand, but it worked. Discipline?
全く
Good grief. It
セザ
beggars
リーニの名を継ぐ
Baker's belief that
君
the
のよ
heir
う
to
な
the
者と
Cesarini name would
アンサン
perform
ブ
an
ルをする
ensemble with you. What kind of discipline?
しかも
And,
魔力
in
という
spite of her
資
gift
質
of
があるに
magic,
もかか
her
わらず
electing to sing instead of playing the fortelli placed her future in jeopardy, so there was no other choice. Cesarini, answer my question.
オルテールを弾くのに
One doesn't need a
いらない
throat
だ
to
ろ
play the fortelli, right?
何
Oh, it wasn't anything extreme, just a little pressure, and it was all that it was needed enough.
ほんの少し力を
Look at that frickin' character model. He brought up both hands to the level of his eyes. He made a small circle, as if he was holding something as thick as a human neck.
その前
It
に
was
やめて
foolish of
おけばよ
Licelcia
か
to
っ
have
た
pursued this enterprise when she should have given it up the first time. What are you talking about first
オル
time?
テール奏者には
Strictly speaking,
究極
a
的に
fortelli
足
player
を
has
い
no
らない
need for feet either. All she has to do is sit in a chair. As if he had made a brilliant joke, he laughed. Slowly, the meaning of what he said sank in. I had recollection of that, but I still couldn't believe it. That was something a parent could do to their child? She's your daughter.
書類上
On
で
paper, yeah.
拾って
She was picked up from the orphanage. To be groomed to become my successor, that was her
私
purpose.
の後継
Well,
者になる
wow, she was an orphan too? Everyone's an orphan. It's Final Fantasy III. What you've done is a crime, Cesarini.
どうするかね
And what are you going to do about it? No one's going to listen to you, or else I wouldn't be telling you.
これで
You
分かった
understand
だ
now, right? Licelcia and you are completely different. Don't get involved. No, that is not for you to say. I'll decide that for
ど
myself.
ちらの身の
I
た
don't
めになら
remember saying for whom it would be best to decide. What, you intend to do something?
必要
If the need arises to. It seems I had misunderstood Grave this whole time. A great musician who looked stern, but also held music in the highest regard. But who was he really? What stood before me was a mad nobleman. Domineering, insensitive, and utterly pompous. Whether it was our country's systems or our culture which produced such people, I couldn't tell you. But I had lost interest in this person before me, so, you understand? That time I ignored him and just walked away. I heard something behind me that sounded like scolding. I didn't even care what he said. Lise, where could she be? The place she always went to when escaping Grave. But it was locked, which meant she was probably waiting in the rain. I never doubted she would be there. Every muddy step I took across the rain-soaked grass brought me closer. There was still no sign of her, but she was here. I knew it. Lise, Licelcia, Chris. Lise was leaning against the door of the old wing, shivering from the cold. Let's go back to my room. I must go back. Father will... Lise? I'm sorry, I won't sing again. I won't defy you again. She wasn't even looking at my face. Shaking her head in fear, she kept apologizing. Listen to me. You don't have to go back to Grave ever again. Let's go to my place. I'm sorry, I won't sing again ever. Still looking down, she kept on going, sounding delirious. To make her look at me, I touched her shoulder. Lise, I was no longer afraid of reaction. Bravely, I held onto her shoulder and I made her look at me. Then, our eyes met. Chris, listen carefully. You will not go back to Grave. Sing whatever, however, I won't let anyone hurt you again. Please, will you let me come with you? Come with me? She backed away as if she was afraid, but there was nowhere else to go. There was a solid door behind her, but she couldn't run. In a panic, she pressed her hands against her neck. I walked up to Lise, gently held her arms, and got her to release. As if clinging onto her white skin, that bandage asserted its presence. It was hiding her injuries, I was sure of it. Stop. Don't look. I won't stop. Show me. No. Betraying her words, her arms were hanging limp by their side, and she made no attempt to stop me. Ugh. Unwinding the bandage revealed 2 reddish-black bruises in the shape of hands. I cringed, and I felt a great pang of guilt. If only I hadn't asked her. If only I hadn't thought about making Lise my partner, none of this would have happened. But I don't think that was true. She had trembled when she said that. I won't sing again. Those are probably the words that she had learned to say all the time. Or perhaps they were a reflex from when that old man taught her this so-called discipline. With or without my involvement, her fate probably would have been the same. That was how unhinged this guy was. Lise. With the gentlest of gestures, I touched her neck. For just one moment, she shuddered in fear. It's okay. It's going to be all okay. Lightly, I traced the outlines of her bruises that I held the back of her neck. Then I embraced her. She didn't put up any resistance. Licelsia. Chris? I'm sorry. No one will hurt you ever again. You've got me. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Instead, I held her even tighter, so that she would believe in what I said, so that she understood my feelings. Chris? That time she said my name clearly, and her arms, which had been hanging by her side, went around my waist. I love you. Me too. Oh no! They kissed. The rain kept falling, as if to wash away both my tears and her tears and my sin. After that, I went back to my room. She was currently asleep in my bed. I put up her rain-soaked uniform on a hanger to dry. Dressed only in one of my shirts, she was in a safe place now, where nothing could hurt her. Something happened? You could say that. She had been silent this whole time, watching Lise fall asleep. Meters up. I was grateful, but somehow I couldn't find the words to express it. I thought about Grave, about Lise. Trying to put that all into words, my heart wrenched. The bandage was partly undone. Bruises. Yeah. She started to understand the situation. How Lise had behaved until now. The injuries on her neck. There were no way to cover them up, nor was there any desire. I'll start from the beginning about everything that happened today. I moved Forney to her usual spot by the window. I sank into my chair and looked her in the eye. I have to start about Grave. I told her everything. As she listened, her expression turned of one deep sorrow, and she gradually ran out of response. I had a duty to keep talking, and she had one to listen to me. And that's why I brought her back here. Uh-huh. Honestly, I don't even know what to do from now on. Uh-huh. Things might get a little troublesome. And I might not be able to tell you everything that happens. Is that okay? If I said it wasn't, would you change your mind? I'm kidding. I wanted to put you on the spot. Yeah, it's fine. Now is not the time for jokes. It's your fault for not trusting me. You just have to tell me what the current situation is, and that's all. We've been together for a long time, so I understand. Thank you. No need to thank me. And when Lisa's awake, I'll try not to appear. No, all I meant was that I wouldn't be able to answer you out loud. I don't want to get in the way of your useful passions. Forney? Am I wrong? No. Oh God. Don't hold back? You shouldn't show unnecessary concern? If it really were unnecessary, I wouldn't. Then don't. No way. Even if you're fine with it, she wouldn't be. And why would Lise worry about you? Because she'd worry about you worrying about me. You may say one thing, but I'm sure you won't be able to ignore me. This is for the best. Look, I said, I decide so your opinion's ignored. Later. I held my breath in case that shout woke up Lise, who was sleeping right behind me. She was fast asleep and breathing senselessly. Senselessly? Serenely. I breathed a sigh of relief. Whenever you feel like appearing, just do so. I said that in a whisper and told myself that she heard me. She was still asleep. I had set up the Fortelli right next to her and I was playing her song. The song was filled with my love for Lise. In the corner of the classroom, it's just like, Lise? I turned my eyes away instantly. She had one of her shirts around her shoulders and the rest of her body was wrapped in a towel blanket. By the front door, your uniform. Okay, I did as I said, and I closed my eyes. Behind me, I heard her get out of bed and patter away. Then came the sound of the coming off the hanger and being put on. I held my breath and she called out to me. It's okay now? Great. Thanks for what you did today. Don't worry about it, but whatever happens, you cannot go back with Grave. Chris? You don't have to say it formally. I probably can't stay in that school anymore. Like I said, don't worry about it. If it's for you, I don't mind at all, but you, call me by my name. As I said, I probably won't be your senior anymore. I like hearing you say my name, though. Chris, thank you. Anyway, I'm completely fine with the situation. You're as long as you're with me now. What? Chris? She called out my name and she started to cry. At least, I didn't think they were tears of sadness. I gave her a hug and I sat down in front of the fortele. Sing whatever you want, whenever you want. Let's have an ensemble? Okay. It had taken a very long time for us to make this ensemble possible again, but I was able to play the fortele and she still remembered her song. Our sounds blended as if we were real partners who'd been performing together for years. Somewhere within those waves of sound I declared my love and she declared her love for me too. Instead of words, we made music, over and over again, as long as time had. We spent many blissful hours that way. Well then, good night. Is it really okay? It's fine. I can't have you sleep on the floor. In that case, I'm fine. Just go sleep on my bed. You should go to bed early tonight. Okay. She sounded disappointed. I didn't know what her intention was, but she seemed convinced. Good night. Good night, Chris. Tired out from singing, she fell asleep right away. When I was sure she was asleep, I went to check to make sure the door was locked. There was no guarantee that Grave would do nothing. The door's lock and chain were the only two things protecting us from the outside world. They seemed unreliable, but we had no other choice. Back in the room, I lay on the towel I put on the floor and looked up at the ceiling. Chris? Out of nowhere, Forney appeared on the desk. What's up? Do you want to hear what I thought about her singing? Sure. It sounded familiar. She had said the same thing too, Torta did. Well, to be more accurate, I think she had tried to. I think it's familiar as well. No, it's not like that. She reminds me of you. That was all she said before she disappeared. When I woke up, I noticed that things were not the same as always, which confused me a little. I was sleeping on a towel instead of the bed. Perhaps that was the reason. I got up and stretched, but my whole body was aching. On my bed, she was asleep peacefully. She looked so calm, the events of yesterday a figment of my imagination. But, in fact, she had been trapped in an unimaginable situation, and I'd been part of that. The bandage that once gripped her neck was lying at the bed, and every time I looked at it, I was with guilt. I thought of calling her name, but I decided against it. She needed to rest. She'd been asleep for most of the time since yesterday, but that was fine. At this point, there was no way she could go to school. Grave had donated a great deal of money to the school, so they were very accommodating. If she went to the school, Grave would find out immediately. It also bothered me that since our escape, Grave hadn't made any attempts to contact us. He wouldn't just leave us alone, would he? He was likely to spin this as a case of kidnapping, or say I had forced her. She was still technically his daughter after all, and the both of us were still registered students. But I didn't need to think about what to do in the short term. Grave was bound to cause trouble, but I had to consider my actions. In other words, the issue of Grave was unknown. There was no way for me to come up with a plan against him. Those were the thoughts in my head as I watched Lise sleep. Good morning. She blinked several times and sat up in bed. She looked confused for a moment by the surrounding, but then she remembered. Oh, good morning. Morning. I really did stay over, didn't I? As if it had all been a dream, she spoke in a whisper without the weight of reality. I couldn't forget what happened yesterday, nor did I intend to forget it. Ignore it, I'm sorry. I smiled at Lise as partly as an indication I'd like to take responsibility. That's right. More importantly, you look like you slept really well. I did. What are we going to do now, though? You're going to live here, in my room. We'll have to gather some things for you to use. That wasn't what Lise was asking about. Even though I was fully aware of it, I had no other answer for her. There was no avoiding the question of the graduation recital or of her own home. As for the graduation recital, as long as I didn't care about graduating, I could just give it up. But at this stage, I couldn't say definitively that it was the best course of action for me. The feelings I'd had when I first asked Lise to be my partner were still alive, which meant Grave was the biggest problem on our hands right now. But, depending on what action he took, our future would be greatly effective. I could have already been expelled. Of course, that was only a possibility. Perhaps even Lise is now. It was also possible he'd also lost his interest in this runaway orphan he adopted and just ignored her. It would soon be a whole day that Lise hadn't gone home. Everyone in the house must have noticed. No one made any moves regarding this matter. Ultimately, everything was in the realm of my own imagination. That's why I turned the conversation for the most trivial matter. Such things were the most important thing we needed to stay alive. Things for me to use, but you don't have to? I don't see a problem with it, but we don't know how long you're even going to stay here, and even if a few days, you'll need a lot of stuff. What can I do for you? She spoke indistinctly. I hadn't brought Lise here because I wanted something. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I wanted you to do something for me, I just wanted to do whatever I could for your own sake. Chris, whatever the case, I couldn't let Lise go back to Grave. What he called discipline was none other than abuse, even if he were only a surrogate parent. I didn't know at that point whether it had been right. But seeing her smile, I knew it possibly could not be a mistake. I was worried, alright, But all we could do was spend the next few days just like this. And even for such a life, we needed many things. The two of us went to the main street where all the shops were so that we could pick up whatever we lacked. We didn't need the umbrella as the weather wasn't bad today. I was actually worried about Lise, but she had insisted that she was fine, so I had no choice but to let her come home. At first, she'd been greatly hesitant, but her expression softened. I guess this is everything. Is there anything else you need? No, it's alright. I can't trouble you any further. Like Lise said, we had brought the essentials, more or less. Anything else could be attained when the need arose. But one problem remained, her clothes. She was here now after her escape from school. I thought about letting her wear my clothes, but they were a little too big for her small frame. And even if I did laundry every day, she still wouldn't have enough to wear. Just thinking about stuff. What clothes you'll need? Clothes? I wasn't a spendthrift, but I didn't have much savings. I had planned on picking only the bare minimum for the needs. Well, if you're okay with it. I mean, as for shirts, I could just borrow yours. We don't have to spend money on those. As long as you're okay with it, I don't mind. Then let's just do that. That left us with underwear, stuff like that. That was the one shopping experience I could not join in. I didn't even know how much they were, so I handed Lise my wallet. I just said, do your thing. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. She looked embarrassed and went inside the clothes store. I looked up at the sky, anywhere except the inside of the store. What were we going to do? It was natural for Lise herself to feel worried. I too was pretending to go about daily life as normal, trying very hard to stay calm, for now. And when tomorrow came for that day, that was how things were going to be. That was all I could do. Sorry for making you wait. She ran over holding a small bag. She looked cheerful, so I imagined that for a while everything had gone back to normal. That smile gave me courage, and the two of us walked back to my place in the rain. Endless ensembles, moments of peace. We had everything to look forward to together. Forney hadn't shown herself. She was doing it out of concern, but I did feel lonely without her. Of course, my feelings for Forney were completely different from those I had for Lise or Arietta previously. But that wasn't a good explanation of what I felt for Forney. She wasn't exactly family, nor was she a close friend. Roommates seemed close, but it wasn't something that could be fully described by such a flimsy term. Forney was Forney. It sounded stupid, but that was the truth. What are you looking at? Oh, sorry, just looking outside. Rain? I guess. I couldn't tell Lise about Forney. If she never came back, it would be as if Forney had just been an illusion. There was nothing to even prove that she had ever existed. Aside from the memories deep within my heart, I had no evidence, and memories were uncertain things. If I forgot about her, did that mean Forney would cease to exist? No, she would just cease to exist. She probably still would. I just wouldn't be able to prove the existence of her. What about the rain were you looking at? Something had piqued Lisa's interest, so she came over and looked up at the sky. It was dark, overcast. It could have been a sign for what lay ahead of us, so I looked away. Who knows? I'm not even sure myself. You know, you're strange. Yeah, you're right. We laughed, and it was time to call it a night. Alright, I'm going to change. Okay, I'll turn around. Just let me know when you're done. Got it. Just to be safe, I closed my eyes and turned around. I couldn't afford to buy Lise any sleepwear, so she just wore my clothes to bed. Once she got under the sheets, her body was fully covered, so that wasn't a problem, but my clothes were too big for her and revealed more of her body that could be healthy for my imagination. You can turn around now. You're going to sleep now, right? I looked down and saw her on the bed. Yes, but are you going to sleep on the floor again? Yeah, why? How about we sleep together? Oh, absolutely not. That is not going to happen. Why not? Because it's not. This bed's too big for one person. That's right, right? It just seems that way because you're small. If I get in, it's going to be cramped. But you'll warn me that way, right? Lise, I sleep on the floor. Could you do it as a favor? A favor? I'm a bit scared. I'm not used to being by myself, but I'm here. Why would you need to think that you're by yourself? Because you were looking somewhere far away, huh? Just now you were thinking of something else, weren't you? And so, can I please feel you close to me? I had been thinking of something else. Lise hit the nail right on the head. Even so, Lise was still the most important thing in my mind, and that wouldn't change, but if that was really what she wanted... Okay, she put her hand and pulled me close to her. Just as I had said earlier, the small bed felt cramped. In order to not feel like I was going to roll off, I had to get close. I guess it just might be a little cramped. I told you, but... She held my hand. That is how close we are now. Yes, close to each other. The simple truth of that statement warmed my heart. It seemed I'd be able to forget about those vague worries until tomorrow morning. Today had passed, and the accumulation of these days became the future. By the time we became aware of its existence, it had already gone from us. Indeed, we were only able to exist now in this moment, and that's why I wanted to cherish it. Lisa's warm hand conveyed her body temperature with certainty, and amid mix of sensations, I fell asleep. When I awoke in the morning, Lisa's face was right next to me. Every day began that way, more or less. Morning, good morning. Smiling, she didn't even get out of bed. It felt like we could be there for another 10, 20 minutes. I think it was the 5th day of our new life together, playing house. It already seemed pointless to count the dates. We woke up, ate, performed ensembles as we felt, and got us through the noon. And then after lunch, we continued ensembles. I also tried teaching Lise my simple recipes, which she never even cooked before. And so the days went by fun, but in a reckless way. Starting to panic, I tried so many times to break out of it, but in the end I had to return to the current way of life. Come on, you have to eat breakfast. Okay, but today I think I'll prepare meals with you. Okay, she was being extremely cheerful. A life away from Grave had changed her this much. In other words, you could say that Grave had created the Lise whom I'd first met. What's the matter? Nothing, I'm just thinking. You know, you're always thinking. She said it casually as if she'd gotten used to my habits. Could she not have really noticed yet? How this life was so fragile that the slightest upset would cause it to come apart instantly. No, if she had noticed and still wanted to remain cheerful, perhaps that was a sign of happiness. Outside the window, the rain was falling. Time was moving forward with certainty, slothfulness. The graduation performance was Friday, but it was unclear if we would even take part. There hadn't been any letters from the school recommending our voluntary withdrawal. Grave hadn't come to try and come, and the time was ever getting closer. Chris, it's getting late. Yeah. Let's sing again tomorrow. Okay. That answer was the only thing I could say that was true. The time for making a decision was at hand. To face the truth and decide our future. Good night. Yeah, get some sleep. The day before the big recital. So, tomorrow's the graduation recital. I chose my topic and started the conversation. Indeed. I hadn't told Lise about how I thought it'd be better for us to get out of the city, but there was no way we could hang around in the city like this forever. Even if we did get out, we wouldn't have anywhere to go. I had my own town, but as for Lise, she didn't have anything. Neither the school nor that house could be a place of comfort. This room, with no one else but me, and the abandoned old wing were the only places she could smile. I wanted to be something like that, someone she could rely on. Staying here and continuing to live this way was nothing more than an illusion. The end of my time at school was coming, and I'd soon have to leave the city. Whether I graduated or not, I couldn't keep leeching off my parents. If I asked, I'm sure my parents would support my living here for another year, but I couldn't ask them that, just to keep up this lifestyle. I could try working, but then we'd never escape Grave. For that reason, I hadn't been able to tell Lise about wanting to leave. Living together was a lot harder than I thought, and I wasn't able to make a decision yet. However, if she wanted it, that would definitely motivate me to decide. Alright, let's get up. Even playing the Fortelli seemed a little bit too much for me right now. I enjoyed playing our ensembles that day and out, but I couldn't shake the feeling I'd lost sight of our goal. As long as Lise kept singing with her usual smile, I was okay. But the thought of changing our present situation, even a little, was something becoming of an obsession. Do you want to go back to school? I trembled inside as I asked. No. She gave me the expected answer. I also asked what she wanted to do. But she was relying on me now and me alone. That's why I needed to tell her about leaving the city, but I couldn't. What are we gonna do? For the first time, I put anxiety into words. She'd asked me the same question many times, but it had always been about trivial stuff, like what to eat, whether or not to sing. Perhaps those were the forms her anxiety took. In that case, shall we sing? I was sure she was going to say that next, and I'd be relieved to hear those words, enough to make me want to continue like this, but what do you want to do? As in, like, assemble? No, from tomorrow. Lise, haven't you been thinking about this for a while? I might have. In fact, I was thinking about it just now, but I gave a vague answer on purpose because I wasn't sure if it was the right time to talk about it. In that case, tell me what's on your mind. I've been waiting, wondering when you'd tell me. Waiting? Singing is fun, and I still think it'd be great if this week could last forever. But I also know that this can't be everything. The times you were lost deep in thought, I knew that you were probably thinking about that. But I only had you in your room, and so I waited. I waited for you to tell me. But you seemed especially troubled today, so I bit the bullet and said it. I see. Perhaps Lise had been thinking about this for a while now. She didn't stumble over her words at all, and in fact she looked glad about being able to say them out loud. So I can say what I think? Yes. I want to get out of this city. I don't have any fixed plans yet, so this is probably stupid, but no. You've given this a lot of thought, haven't you? Once we leave here, how will we make a living? We just have to do what we like and things will work out, right? Right then, Lise sounded like a normal girl talking about her dreams. She only saw a bright, imaginary happiness without worries of the future. I wasn't going to deny her that. In fact, I wanted to believe in it as well. The fact that Lise believed in me enough to say that made me very happy. They will. As long as Lise was with me. I'm sure she felt the same way. But I have one request. What is it? If I could do it, I will do it. It's about the song, the one I've been singing. Yeah. I want you to look for the score with me. The score? Where should we look? Didn't you say that not even the school archives had it? That score, it's in Graves' house. Your house? I'm an orphan. Lise didn't know that I had already heard that from Grave. The words that came out of Graves' mouth were beyond cruel. At that time, she'd been scared, she'd been hurt. I could never repeat it to her then. I see. So I pretended I was hearing it for the first time and waited for her to continue. You don't seem surprised. There are well-known stories of nobility doing things. That was true. It wasn't because they couldn't have children. Everyone knew the stories about nobility who gave their names to talented unknowns in order to raise their own reputation. And before me stood a girl who proved existence that was true. When I was taken in, the only thing I had on me was that score. This is kind of weird. So, they're all orphans, right? The only thing that Fal had was the wings. The only thing that Lise has is the score. What do they mean by this? At that time I wasn't able to read, but I'd always sing along. But my father wouldn't let me sing. After all, he'd take me in the purpose of playing the fortelli, and he had no need of a child who developed any other interest. No, I wanted to tell her otherwise, but I couldn't. What she was thinking was the truth. Lise didn't seem to notice my consternation, and she went on. And then father took that score and hid it. So it's somewhere inside Graves' house. I have an idea, actually. It's in the study. I don't remember when, but I happened to see him looking at it. And at that time, I ran away because I thought I'd done something terrible, but that was my score that I saw, and then I heard it. He was playing the accompaniment to it on the fortelli. Why would he keep it? He recognized the merit of the song, just like you did when you first played it for me. I wondered if such a thing were possible. My first thought wasn't that he had a consistent with Graves' true nature, but he did have a real ear for music. It's possible it was true. That's why I'm certain it's in that study, hiding in this hallway in the shadows while I watched him while he left the room, his hands empty. How are we going to get into that study? You have guards, don't you? He doesn't trust other people, so aside from the help, there's no one there. And those people leave as soon as their work's done, which means as long as he's not around, we can get inside easily? I believe so. Then let's go when he's out. That would be today. Today, every year starting in December, he has special classes in the school on Thursday. That's the only day he comes home late. Now that you mention it, Cordell said he said something about him being in a lecture room when there were no students. But no, what he was really doing was making Lise practice. That's why I knew today would be my last chance to tell you about this, that score. It's super important to me. That song helped me realize that singing is what I wanted to do. I understand, we leave at noon. Okay, perhaps this was for the best. There were many, many other things I had to think about, but this was the real deal. It was a few minutes past noon. Let's go. Yes. She was already prepared and standing in the doorway. Following right behind her, I turned around as I stepped out the door. See you later. See you later. Take care, you guys. Be quiet. She had somehow moved to where the towels were always and was hovering by the front door. What's the matter? It won't take long. You don't have to say anything. It's nothing, but could you just wait for a quick moment, Lise? Yeah. I heard everything. I nodded very slightly, motioning for her to continue. There's nothing for me to say except good luck. Why was Forney saying this now? If Lise hadn't been there, I wouldn't have been able to ask, but I would have. I'll be gone for some time again, so this is goodbye. Wait a second. I almost shouted that out loud. Lise is a good girl. I feel safe leaving you in her hands. I don't want her to wait too long, so one last thing. Be good to each other, okay? Bye. Wait. I finally did say it out loud, but I had the feeling that she would never come back. I'm waiting. Behind me, outside the doorway, Lise was puzzled. Sorry. Is something wrong? You look pale. It's nothing. Just making sure I hadn't forgotten anything. I put a smile and I turned back towards her. Forney, she had a reason for saying that. Perhaps she really would never see me again. I had wanted to have a proper talk when I moved out, but I couldn't afford to agonize over that now. Alright, let's get this done. I fully intended to uphold her last words. See you later. I said that one last time, and I left. The rain was light, gentle. We didn't even need to use the umbrella. It was even almost a little bit warm. Running my hands through my damp hair, I looked up at that house. It was enormous, but it was hollow. It felt especially so after hearing Lise. I have the key, let's go in. It was kind of dark inside. The interior was extravagantly furnished as expected, but it didn't impress me. After finding out about Graves' personality, I didn't find it in good taste. Here it is. Lise stood in front of a room on the second floor, somewhere in the back of the house, and slowly opened the door. She had called it a study, and it was certainly full of books and documents and music. The room where I lived was tiny compared to this one. It wasn't large or well stocked as the school's archives, but in terms of quality, the two were similar. It has to be somewhere here. This room's huge. I'm sorry. Even though I was only stating an honest opinion, she reacted sensitively. That wasn't my intention, so I hastily corrected. Still, there aren't many places in here where one could hide a score, so we should be good. I'm sorry. Look, I said. Then I stopped realizing that it was coming back to this house that was causing her to withdraw. Perhaps it was because the house itself didn't hold memories, good memories, and this room was a symbol of grave. Don't mind me. I'll start over here, you over there, okay? As long as we were doing something, we could forget about what I'd said. I started with the bookcase with black glass doors that was on our left. She investigated a similar bookcase that was on the opposite side. I didn't know exactly when he would return, but it'd probably be at least half an hour after the school ended of the lecture. That gave us about 3.5 hours. Now then, we had to go over the entire place in the end, but we were looking out for envelopes, cases, anything with the score. Given the score was handwritten, we ignored all the books. First, in case we needed to make a hasty exit, we didn't put anything on the floor for our search. Whatever we took up for inspection was placed back in its original position, and searching for it over an hour, I became somewhat tired. I stopped for a while and spoke to Lise. We still have some time. Let's start with a short break. Alright. Lise had been focused on the task, so she only responded after a while. I had gone thoroughly about through half of the designated area. At this pace, we were able to find it before the time we left. But if we didn't, what were we going to do? Sneaking back in here would be dangerous, honestly speaking. Things would be different if Lise was still living here, but in our current situation, it was hard to know when he would definitely be away. If only he were a kind of musician who still gave regular concerts, but Grave no longer did that. His main activities were composing and instructing the next generation. Speaking of which, during my search, I was astounded by the number of his compositions. I'd expected a small much number of handwritten scores, but there were tons. I saw the names of many other composers, but there were definitely many of his own compositions there. The one saving grace was the fact that all of his handwritten scores had been consolidated and arranged neatly, perhaps due to a meticulous nature. Although his goal was to hide that score from Lise, I didn't think he'd hide it somewhere by itself. He had so many scores, it'd be hard to think that one score would be safe here. Chris, what's up? Are you tired? No, I'm good. What about you? I'm good. I see. We're about halfway done, so we can rest a bit longer. Okay, but you're not tired, are you? No. Why do you ask? Let's do an ensemble. Why not? It'll be a nice diversion. There's a Fortelli here, even conveniently enough. I got it. We have plenty of time left. We could do one ensemble. The Fortelli sat in one corner of the room and was covered in a thin layer of dust. I'm assuming it hadn't been played in a long time. Okay, here we go. Yes. She started singing, and her visible enjoyment made me enjoy playing the Fortelli. She had added the lyrics after some time. Perhaps that's why they sounded stoic. They probably spoke of how she felt when alone, but those lyrics sang of hope in the end. Perhaps that had been her wish all along. Perhaps she'd want to be in that state of mind now and thought of the song. After we finished, we resumed the search. That's when the thought came to me. You said that he played the song in this room, right? Yeah, on that Fortelli. It was permanently set up in the corner of the room, so its case was almost irrelevant. Or it should have been, but there wasn't much dust on it. It definitely should have been left alone by the time the Fortelli was, but the amount of dust covering it looks similar. Let's take a look inside. I opened the case. This is the score. Lay inside, uncovered. With one look, I knew it was the song. It's here! Really? She ran over and held up the parchment. This is it. This is the one. As if she was trying to confirm it tacitly, she kept running her fingers over its surface, and then hugged it. Great, now let's get out of here. Prestissimo. Alright, thank you. Really, don't mention it. Lise didn't hear a word I'd said, and her eyes went back to the score. Somewhat intrigued, I peeked at it. Was this a gift? The title said nothing more than Esque, which could have been someone's name. As for the actual lyrics, I tried reading the words written. This is a love song. She must have read it the same way I did. I guess the composer wrote this love song for the person in the title? I had no idea, but maybe. The fact that this score, Lise had the score, implied one possibility. One of Lisa's real parents must have either written or received it, or perhaps one wrote it for the other. The composer's name is... I looked for the name written at the end. I turned to the very last page and read the name. Grave? What the hell? He had something to do with this? She also tried to confirm the composer's name. Grave Cesarini? No. Upon closer inspection, the writing matched the other scores. Lise had recognized the score with certainty, so it probably hadn't been tampered with. Then why? I thought I heard a Fortelli. Uninvited guests, I see. Father, what are you doing? I'm looking for something. Defiant. Now that's rogue courage. Forgive me. There's no need to apologize. You came for what's yours. Grave's sudden appearance shocked me at first, and I became fierce. But after seeing Lisa's fear, I instantly regained composure. When I recalled that this man had caused so much pain, there was no space in my mind for anything but rage towards him. There was definitely the question of why Grave was the composer of that song. Even so, as I stood in front of Lisa to protect her, I felt an equal amount of courage rise. I was wondering what you were going to say. I wrote that song, and I also gave it to someone, once upon a time. I knew what those words meant. The name of the composer was his, that was certain. But, Licelsia, yes? I always knew you'd come back. That's precisely why I'd left you alone this past week. I'd never told you a word, but it occurred to me that today would be the day. How fortunate that I came home early today. In a complete about-turn, Graves spoke to Lise with what almost sounded like kindness. Was he worried? This man couldn't have been worried towards Lise. Everything he said was a lie, always. Lise, after you left, I had a revelation. I've been too hard on you. I'm truly remorseful. Father, I had wished to wait until you became an adult before I told you, but I need to tell you the truth now. What on earth did this hypocrite have to say now? Let's go, Lise. Wait, I have to know. Chris Burton, you must hear this as well. If you want to be with Licelsia, it is your duty to do so. I didn't trust those words, thanks to what this man had said before. But Lise had gripped the hem of my shirt with pleading eyes. I stopped and decided to hear him out, although I made sure I was ready to leave at any time. I understand. Let us continue. That song was something I wrote for a woman named Esk. Esk was your mom's name, Licelsia. That means I'm your father, your real father. Darth Vader. There was no words to express the shock I felt. If that were true, it meant he had done these terrible things to his own daughter, his flesh and blood. The first time I saw you at the homeless or the orphanage shelter, I didn't know it. But once you started humming that song, you were my daughter. I knew it. What about my mom then? At that time, I was a successful musician, but because I was busy with work, I wasn't able to take care of my family. One day, she walked out, taking you with her. As if he were the main character in a tragedy, he gave an exaggerated sigh. All of his gestures looked staged. He made me sick. Father, I did everything in my power to look for the two of you, but I never succeeded. Then, when I was giving a volunteer performance at the orphanage shelter, I found you, Licelsia, and the first thing I did was take you in as my own daughter. What about my mom? Her whereabouts. That was the one thing I never found out. She probably found herself unable to raise you alone and was forced to leave you at the shelter. Come back to me, Licelsia. She looked at my eyes. She started to say something and stopped herself and went on. Usually this would be an emotional scene, ending with me sending her off with tears of joy, but there was no way I could have done that. I still don't believe a single word of what Graves said. If you really are her father, then why abuse her? To discipline her. A first-rate Fortelli player doesn't have the time to sing songs. When he said discipline, his eyes gleamed with light, or just for a moment, maybe I imagined it. Chris? But in that case, why all this now? You were planning till she became an adult to tell her. Why? I am a Cesarini. A noble is born a noble, for better or for worse. I cannot run from my name. The burden of carrying that name, one can never run away from that name. I need, nay, this house needs to produce a talented Fortelli player for the world. To that end, I cannot let emotions get in the way. If I had told Licelsia that I was her real father, she would have grown complacent, and by that token I would have been unable to remain the proper distance from her. For that reason, until Licelsia perfected her technique, until she grew up, I stayed silent. I had to admit, his story did make sense, but why? Why say those things to me before? How feet unnecessary, there was no need to hesitate. Singing. I could not believe him. Do you remember what you said to me last week? I did say harsh things, but it was for her sake. But those words were too cruel and I couldn't repeat them. Furthermore, he gave an explanation for the cruelty. Chris, she believed every word he said. It wouldn't have surprised me if she said she was going back to him, but if Grave was telling the truth, she was better off returning home. I'm sorry. Then, that's what she said. But she didn't say it to me, she didn't say it to Grave. I decided to go with Chris. I wondered how hard it had been made to make her decision. She had no sign of struggle, her voice was steady. I see. With equal solemnity, he nodded and remained silent. Lise. It's fine. I may have misunderstood you, Father, but not anymore. And I have also made a promise to Chris. I promised I'd go with him. I see. I know I've done cruel things to you, Licelsia. If you do not wish to return, I will not force you to do so. However, I thought he was going to try in some other maneuver, but he was just grandstanding. In the end, I am a Cesarini. I cannot be expected to accept your decision right away. However, if you perform well at graduation recital tomorrow, I will be amenable to amendable, I'm sorry, to change my request.
クリス
Chris Verton. He looked at me and
それが
continued. Those are my conditions. Chris, yes. Even if I didn't believe his story, the proposal was not a bad idea. In other words, Grave would accept us as long as I, instead of Lise, became the Fortelli
な
musician.
ら今日は
In that
精一杯
case,
練習を
spend
する
all energy practicing today. I trust you haven't been
まさかこの
completely idle this week? I've been singing the whole time. Singing. He almost choked on that word. For one moment, the calm in his voice disappeared. I felt terror, but Lise was so moved by his words, she didn't notice. We'll take our leave then. Yeah.
いいだろう
As you wish. I'll be a part of
明日は
tomorrow's
私も
judging
審査
panel.
を
Let
す
me
る
say
こと
this
になる
now. I will not be lenient. If that's all, excuse us.
お父様
I'll see you
な
tomorrow.
あそれま
As
で
for the score, I'll keep it. Until the time, I'll give it back. I'll come back for it then. Lise, brimming with confidence. When we got back to my room, she started to sing. The Fortelli, I know. I had never seen her in such a better mood. I couldn't tell her what I was thinking about, not right now. It was a first for her, no doubt. For the first time in her life, Lise knew about her past and her singing was to be accepted. No matter what Gray's intentions were, all I could do now was give the best performance of my life. Let's take it from the top. Things are probably not going to be okie dokie. I sat in front of the Fortelli and looked. We matched our breathing and she nodded. Oh, man. This bad ending is not going to be... It's not going to be great. I'm sure it can't be that bad. I have to make sure I actually get this right though, because this ending is you have to get 5 stars on it in order to get the good ending. Not like 5 stars, you just have to be on the 5th mark, and the bad ending is anything lower than that. So, like, you don't need to have all the circles filled, you just need to have it to the 5th big circle lit up, which obviously we're hitting that now, and we also have all of them filled. So, I feel enough confidence. I'm brimming with confidence to perform this song successfully. After one performance of the song, we both heaved a great sigh. There was no need to verbalize our opinions about how it sounded. We both knew very well how it had to be done. One more time? No, we don't need to. Nah, let's call it a day. I'm not sure when I'm performing, but we have to be there first thing in the morning. Besides, we should rest early. That's true. I didn't realize how late it was. It was only natural to be more focused when you had an actual goal as opposed to simply making music for fun. Tomorrow was an incredibly important performance. Then later my term was, the more we'd have to practice. Normally I wouldn't mind doing the bare minimum, but this time, at least in the last month or so, I'd changed. Lise, she changed as well. Tomorrow, after we put on an amazing performance, she would change even more, I'm sure. Grave couldn't be fully trusted, but the fact that he gave us this chance at all was something to be grateful for. Tomorrow, then. Yeah, it's kind of sudden, but I know you've been singing this whole time. I think we'll be fine. Indeed. She looked at me with eyes full of hope. Let's make a save here, just to make sure that we don't lose our spot. I nodded in response with determination. Alright, here we go. Bad ending time. Yay. The morning came along with a pleasant awakening. It wasn't even 8 o'clock. The only thing I remembered was that recitals began at 10. We would get to school around 8:30, check what time our turn-in was, and then practice. Even if we were the first to perform, that would give us over an hour of practice. Are you ready? Yes. She gave me a hearty reply full of confidence. The recital went well, but even if it didn't, she changed. I couldn't deny that what Graves said yesterday was part of the reason. I couldn't feel any gratitude, but someday I might just be able to forget him. Okay, see you later. See you later. Imitating me, she bid goodbye and then to the room that had been her home. Her saying it had a slightly different meaning, but it made me happy nonetheless. Okay, let's go. Okay then. Just before the door closed, I thought I heard a familiar sound. Fluttering wings. The sky... No depression. The sky was clouded over, but it was brighter than usual. And thanks to that fine mist-like rain, we hardly got wet. The rain was so light, the tiny raindrops changed direction whenever a wind blew. This wind was also a bit cold, but it had been a pleasant day by the city standards. We entered the hallway and went to the bulletin board. The notice was dated for the 4th of this year. After my meeting with Cortell, I guess I hadn't been back to school. The one time I did come, I'd been so busy looking for Lise, I didn't even have time to see what time I was performing. You, the first performer? You're right, in that case we have plenty of time. The afternoon program was at 1:30. A footnote exhorted all the students to gather by the concert hall stage before their turn. Alright, let's go find a practice room. Okay, she didn't have any good memories of the practice rooms, but today most of the students were practicing and the few who were all third years. There wouldn't be anyone who knew her. But soon, she wouldn't have to worry about that. Everyone will recognize the beauty of her voice. I believed. And so because this is my first time here with you, isn't it? Yes, I was always practicing in the old room, that's why. But you'll be able to come back here from now on, right? Yes, I know I can. Even by myself. That's great. Chris, you've always had the best interest in mind, huh? Just now or whenever you asked me to be your partner. You think so? I know so. It's okay, so you don't have to say anything. Alright, let's practice. I prepared my fortelli and Lisa and I practiced again. Over and over. When we were satisfied, we entered the concert hall 15 minutes before our exam. That's because Elise wanted to take a look at the venue beforehand. This is where I'll be singing. Oh god. That's right. Somehow I'm getting nervous. I thought you were used to performing. It's my first time singing in public. She looked around the hall with emotion in her eyes. Even though it was lunchtime, the hall was abuzz with activity. Many guests had come to watch the graduation recitals, and because seats had been reserved, there were surprisingly few seats left for students. Those students who were serious about listening to the performances never left their seats, apparently, so they wouldn't be taken by others. There may have been other students who knew Lise, but she didn't seem concerned. Come on, let's go. Alright, this is probably going to be the perfect saving spot. Lise gave me one last look on the stage before we moved. We reached the side of the stage exactly at 15 minutes. A student worker told me that those going on a break were to prepare their equipment while the curtain was down, so I set up the fortelli. On the other side of the curtain, the audience was getting noisier, which told them it was almost time. From the bag, I took out the score that Lise had copied and flipped through it one more time. It was slightly different from the original song. If only we'd taken that score home yesterday, we could have made corrections. What's wrong? Nah, I just noticed some differences from the original score to this one, but I forgot them all anyways. This score was something we created together. It's much more suitable for today's performance. You know what? It is. She was right. But if there's one thing I could change, I give this song that Lisa and I made the lyrics of a love song. The issue of Gray's personality aside, this song was made for her beloved. Cordell and Forney's reactions, they'd been completely spot on. Now I'm getting really nervous. Was it the same as when you played the fortelli? No, because when I played I didn't feel nervous. Not because I wasn't sure of my abilities, that's just because I was playing for my father. How about now? Of course I'm also doing it for you, but I want to sing for myself. That's why I'm so nervous. She put her arms around herself as she spoke. Less skipping we have to do. Her body trembled slightly. Give me your hand. I took the hand so that she tremulously sent out. You're right, your pulse is racing. That's your fault. She looked around nervously to see if anyone might see us. There were several students on either side, including the students, but they all looked too busy. So we stood there for a while holding hands and she regained her composure. Thank you, I feel calmer now. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna rock this performance. Then she pulled her hand away. I didn't want the moment to end, but I had no choice. That's when someone walked up behind her. Good morning. It looks like you both made it. Yeah, we even practiced earlier. I never heard you say those words before. Chris, Lacelsia, it's been a while. Yeah, good morning. By the way, you're looking confident. Well, yeah. How interesting. You actually gave a direct answer. Does that mean you'll put on a convincing performance? I didn't ask Cordell to ask such a pointed question. Convince me. She said that before. And in fact, we made a similar promise to Grave. We will. It'll be convincing. Chris? Excellent. Just then the buzzer sounded. It's time. Go on. Show 'em what you got. Okay. Yes. I heard the sound of the curtain being raised mechanically. Holding out scores in one hand, we walked on the stage together. From the stage, it was too dark to make out the faces of the audience. Some of them were probably acquainted with Lise. Lise looked around the stage anxiously and took a deep breath. I sat in front of the Fortelli and looked at her. Everything that happened in that point flashed across my mind. We'd endured so many things for this moment. Some had been hard to bear, some may have even hurt Lise. But in spite of that, here we stood, about to perform and ensemble for our future. A daunting goal, but going back to basics, the best thing to do was have fun. And so I whispered, let's have fun. Okay. After a moment's breath, we began our performance. I think we're going to actually save right. We did. Oh, God. Bad ending first, so... Yeah, the lyrics have constantly foreshadowed all the routes. Something I really appreciate about the music and why I'm so excited for Torta's song. After our performance, we were greeted with applause. To be honest, it hadn't been that bad. But, Chris, I felt an incredible sense of ennui? Ennui? Ennui. A feeling of listlessness and dissatisfaction arising from a lack of
ennui,
ennui. A feeling of listlessness and dissatisfaction arriving from a lack of occupation or of excitement. Chalk that one up in everyone's now dictionary. Two students were waiting to perform at the edge of the stage, and the student in charge motioned for us to get off. We took a bow and exited. Welcome back. That wasn't bad. You'll graduate. She sounded quite disappointed. I knew she had high expectations, but it was my fault for not being able to meet them. I'm sorry. What? I said it wasn't bad. Normally that was a compliment, but right now there was no pleasure to be had. She's crying. I have a message for you. Cesarini said to go to the lecture room. Okay. Chris, let's go. Okay. The thought of escaping there also crossed my mind, but in the end I couldn't do it. In front of the lecture room I apologized. I'm sorry. Don't. Even if I'm not good enough now. Huh? Even if I'm not good enough now, I'll practice until I earn his approval. I'll ask this all over again. Chris, just wait. Wait for that day. I opened the door and Grave was seated in a chair. Despite his purported impartiality as a judge, he looked as if he'd been waiting his whole life. How nice of you to come. You understand, Father, excuses will not be tolerated. You know this as well. Yeah. Lise. I said her name once and I bowed. Get out of my sight. She was staring at me. I stared back, proving that what I'd said earlier was the truth. Then, I left. I looked up at the sky and I made a vow. I was determined to pursue Lise. Today's failure would not go to waste. Someday, I wasn't good enough now, but someday, believing that I'd see her again, I started walking. I had to become a professional musician. That wasn't actually that bad. I mean, it certainly wasn't good. Anyways, since I've got to get up for the Schalke game, I'm going to end the stream here. Tomorrow we will be back. Probably going to be flying through this. Tomorrow we are going to finish why did I just think of her? Lise, Lacelsia. We're going to finish Lacelsia's good ending, and then we're going to do the neutral bad. And then after that, we begin Torta's route, and then Alfine, and then Symphonic Rain. I will see you guys then tomorrow. Have a nice night, and until then, have a good one. See you guys tomorrow.